Thank you very much. Well, first, let me say that it has been a pleasure to be involved in this exercise. We have been witnessing the successful engagement of companies throughout the months and have seen promising results. So first, let me outline the first step in the process, which was to develop in close collaboration with the pledge coordinator, with the Chambas Center and the technical committee, a reporting framework. So if we can get to the first slide, exactly, thank you. So the aim of this reporting framework was really to balance the need for accountability and transparency, while also ensuring a reasonable reporting burden on pledging companies. And this led to a verification process that took into consideration two criteria. First of all, the pledge amount. It was decided to focus on 16 companies which had made a commitment of at least $1 million at the time of that submission, which is 2021, whilst the other companies, about 27 companies, which had a pledge under $1 million, were invited to submit case studies. The second criteria was the type of company. So we made a distinction between public companies and private companies in the verification process, with more detail asked from private companies, whereas public companies were able to submit a signed statement for verification. And this was, again, to balance the need for accountability, but also the burden that is involved in reporting. The reporting framework was finalized and presented to companies at the end of July, and it can be accessed on the Zero Hunger Pledge website. So once the reporting framework was done, the next phase started with the verification process for this first report. The scope of the report was 2021 and 2022, 2021 being the start of pledge submissions and until the 31st of December 2022. It included all project investments in those first 2 years. During this process, we engaged with all 16 companies directly over 4 months to gather information, which resulted in this report being launched today. If we can see this, perfect, this slide. So 14, we are very satisfied with the result because 14 of the 16 companies have reported on the implementation of their pledge. So it was a very positive exercise. And they have collectively been implementing 103 projects, which represents investment of $140 million in 46 countries. If we can go to the next slide, please. So the majority of investments were deployed in the form of core business investment. And that signals that pledging companies are choosing to integrate Sustainable Development Goal 2, Zero Hunger, into their core operations, as opposed to into their CSR or philanthropy arm, which is also another interesting positive sign. If we can go to the next slide, please. So at the time of submitting their pledge, companies need to identify the area of intervention with which their investment aligns. And these intervention areas are priority themes, which were defined by the CERES 2030 research report. And they were identified as the most promising for delivering high impact towards this goal. They consist of 3 categories, which are empower the excluded, on the farm, and food on the move, which are split over 10 different areas. For this report, so you can go to the next slide, please. For this reporting cycle, it was interesting to see that nearly 60% of projects aligned with the intervention on the farm. And the second after that was 27% for empowering the excluded, and 13% for food on the move. And diving deeper, we find that half of the investment align with sustainability-related intervention areas, more specifically, supporting sustainable practices, reducing post-harvest losses, and supporting the adoption of climate-resilient crops. Now let's look at the priorities by country and regions. If we can get to the next slide. So the reports find that even though the highest priority countries are in Africa, unfortunately, merely a third of projects, 34 projects, were deployed in Africa. The majority were deployed in Asia with 44% and 22% in Latin America. And this is for region, but when it comes to country themselves, so high priority countries, we found only 8 projects were deployed in those high priority countries, compared to 108 projects in low priority countries and 56 in medium priority countries, knowing that some projects are deployed in several countries. Hence the 108 compared to the 103 at the beginning of the presentation. So what we can say is that as a conclusion, the report's finding revealed that it's a very good news that pledging companies are indeed integrating the Zero Hunger goal into their core business. They are supporting mainly interventions on the farm on the farm investment area more than other investment categories, and they're implementing few projects in Africa in those high priority countries, but are mostly focused on countries that are low priority. So these were our findings.